The year is 2005 and everyone is waiting for the follow-ups to the greatest console generation the world had ever seen at that point. The powerhouse that was the PS2 practically single-handedly brought into the era of modern gaming, shedding the age of retro and leaving it behind only to be used as a marketing gimmick and for dorkly animations. Microsoft, the PC monolith, has just entered the gaming space with its flagship Halo and the Xbox. Nintendo had sort of just dropped the ball on the GameCube, but it's 2005, the PS3 hasn't come out to turn Sony into the Last of Us company, go 3 console generations without any video games, and Nintendo has yet to repackage the console they just fumbled and sell it again to unprecedented success. Right now, all we have is the new and shiny Xbox 360. Yeah, don't worry, this isn't going to be some, hey guys, remember the good old days kind of video? Well, mostly, but I'm sure that energy is going to find its way in somewhere. No, I'd rather take a look at the things that made this console uniquely unique. The bits that made you turn 360 and walk away when you see it. The weird shit. See, I think there's some sort of special sauce when it comes to the 360. Sure, many of the Xbox brand standards were started here, but there's also a lot of relics of a bygone era and time stuck on this machine that just aren't really translated into modern Xboxes. Whether that's some ideas themselves or just how these ideas were executed, things are just really different and everything seems to stem from Windows 8. The 360's identity still stands strong, unlike current Xbox where the Series X is literally just a better version of the Xbox One. Although even with all the improvements, Snap App is still dead and gone. I thought this was the future of gaming. Where's Snap App? That's how I got through the rough parts of the Boo Saga. And you took it from me. You lied to me, Aaron Paul. Why? Anyway, speaking of dead and gone, let's talk about our first subject, why don't we? Yes, see, before the time of Steam letting in everything and almost anything into Steam, regardless of the quality, which, mind you, I still say is a good thing, the term indie game actually meant something. Nowadays, the title of indie games are kind of a useless moniker, which is also a good thing. These days, many of the biggest releases that go viral and end up at the Game Awards and make their creators rich as hell are indie games by description, but it's just less impressive, let's say. Now, these games are certainly impressive. I don't mean to demean the hard work of these devs, but the tools to make these games are now readily available and often free most of the time. Getting your game out there has never been easier. And to top it off, these devs can be supported by their fans during the creation process via Patreon or other means. Your work is impressive, but back in the day, an indie game existing, let alone coming out, was impressive regardless of the quality. The lines between indie dev and small game studio are barely distinguishable unless you're a solo dev. I'm not gonna clap just because your game came out, but I will if it's good, which it probably is. See, before everyone's free Unity competitor came out, before you could have your game go completely viral because you made it for Roblox, before Valve let you put hentai and weed puzzles out to the masses, it was an uphill battle. But Xbox was there to help, and probably was the last time they ever did anything like that. See, alongside the arcade section of the digital storefront, there was also a section for publishing indie games. And oh boy, were indie games published. There's a sort of special feeling when it comes to Xbox 360 indie games that you aren't going to find anywhere else. Because yes, normal indie games were published here, but where's the fun in talking about a game that also was published on Steam? Because it managed to slip past the heavily guarded gates of Valve that existed back then. No. See, Xbox had its own very special variety of indie games, along with, the normal stuff. See, one of my favorite kinds of indie games on Xbox were these indie games where you played as your avatar. And don't worry, we'll get on to avatars later, but the funny thing is, I actually rarely ever touched any of these games, because no offense, I think I was gonna stick with Skyrim for the 5,000th hour, rather than play World of Keflings yet again. I always tried to play World of Keflings, but every time I tried, I was like, wow, this is terrible. So I usually just watch these from afar like a stalker, but as time goes on, I really wish I played more of these in their day. So with that, let's talk about our first one, everyone's favorite and most iconic of iconic Minecraft clones, Castleminer Z. Now, for the uninformed, Castleminer Z was a Minecraft ripoff that came out on the Xbox before Minecraft actually left PC to come to the Xbox for itself. But instead of playing as Steve, you played as your avatar, and there was a whole zombie invasion going on 24/7, no matter what, rather than a few zombies banging down your door at night. There was also, most notably, a lot of guns. guns. Castleminer Z's biggest claim to fame was the guns, yeah. I mean, without mods, Steve ain't got no gat now, does he? John Castleminer, on the other hand, does. Castleminer Z is an experience, to say the least. Something that could only have been birthed in its time and era, and was only successful because of what it was aping wasn't there at the time. Now, this might be a hot take, but Castleminer Z is not very much of a good game at all, but at the same time, it's kind of a great game. In the same way Metal Gear Solid 5's story being unfinished and disjointed adds to the mystique and overall vibe in a good way, Castleminer Z being this hodgepodge of out-of-place assets and random ideas with a Minecraft backdrop creates this unrivaled vibe that the game stands alone at a peak of a mountain with. No other game really feels like Castleminer Z, not even Minecraft, that's for damn sure. It's like playing a weird, bizarro version of Minecraft that's made out of duct tape and a dream. The game itself feels like a late-night, early 2010s gaming session. The sun approaching you as you can't tell if that little thing you saw out of the corner of your eye was an actual goblin or something else. This game being the goblin in question. Even the Steam version, which yes, there is a Steam version, so yes, you can go buy this right now and experience the immaculate vibe, is still cool, despite the fact that you don't play as your avatars. Instead, you play as these army dudes, which, I mean, I like these guys well enough. I put them on this art I made, so evidently I'm not lying. Something I find really interesting about this game isn't that it's just actually successful and has fans, but also that it's like the only successful Minecraft clone that's still sort of kicking. Its patchwork game design is what I think keeps it in the minds of most people to this day. Half of these assets are from other games made by the same people. Take, for example, my favorite part and my weapons of choice, these alien laser guns. You get these by getting the crafting supplies for them while fighting these goofy alien dudes in their crashed orb ships. These guns are just from a different game called Avatar Laser Wars, and the same could be said for a lot of the stuff in this game. It's really hard to tell what is made for this game and what was brought over from something else, because nothing really meshes well together at all, but that sort of makes it all mesh together at the same time. Ah yes, of course, I'm fighting these weird goofy-ass skeletons with giant swords on top of Minecraft grass blocks with my laser gun. What's so weird about all that? There's been about 1 million shameless Minecraft clones, most of which are dubiously legitimate at all, and there's been fewer but more notable Minecraft competitors, and none have really stood the test of time, except for this Xbox 360 gem. Cube World almost did, but it fumbled the bag right before it crossed the finish line, and the only thing closer to that is, I don't know, Trove, maybe-ish? This is really the only other sort of Minecraft-like that's out there still living. I really do not like that term. Speaking of sort of living, we have our next game and half the reason I wanted to make this video. End of Days. This game right here has been haunting me for years. Well over 10 years, most certainly. See, I'm sure you can remember because thousands of people on YouTube have already told you, but the late 2000s to mid 2010s for some reason became the zombie era of pop culture. Everything and anything was zombies. Zombie shows, zombie novels, zombie comics, and of course, zombie games. So that's where this game comes from. This is End of Days Survivor. There's like less than 20 videos on this game, and most of them are from over 10 years ago. I feel like I'm the only person on Earth with this demo of the game loaded onto their Xbox. See, this game was made by an indie studio called Sick Creations, with a K. Now, some of you may remember their most notable title, Apocz Z, which has many more videos on it than End of Days does. This was because Apocz Z was a lot like Castleminer Z, where an indie studio made a clone of a hot new game that was only available on PC at the time. Apocz Z being a ripoff of DayZ, but this video isn't about that. We're talking about this. So what does this entail? Well, this game is kinda a clone of COD Zombies, but just not good at all. That's basically all there is to the gameplay. You spawn in this little house and shoot at zombies until the wave ends, then you buy more guns, all of which are on the wall directly to your right. So seeing as that's literally all there is to this game, let me go over some of the notable things I noticed while playing it again for the first time in years. The map is really big for some reason for a game with such a small scope, like way bigger than I remember, but there's no point in going out to anywhere else besides the main house because there's nothing out there but extra ammo. It's very weird and very dark. The map is filled with odd signs and empty buildings. Another thing which relates to what I just said is that the horde of zombies seems to know where you are at all times, and also there's just way too many in a single wave. There's like just a billion. And so this creates a problem where no matter what you do, there are zombies always following you. They don't ever seem to lose sight of you, even if you run to the other side of the map. So they're just always flooding in at you in either goofy lines or from every single doorway. And of course, there's only like 2 zombie models, so you're just being chased by the Godskin duo over here for the entire game. And that's really all there is to the zombies. Someone named Becky North did the art for the game, and that's probably the best part about the game itself, which isn't saying much, not to insult the art, just the game is really bad. I couldn't easily find any info on Becky here, so I don't want to come off as a stalker and dig too deep to try to find them. So on the off chance you're watching this, Becky, these opening slides are burned into my memory forever. Overall, my takeaway is that this game doesn't feel real. It feels like I'm playing a game that you'd see on some sitcom or a weird creepypasta ARG. Like, there's gonna be some shadow man coming around the corner. I open up a YouTube video and I'm like, I found this game, this hidden demo on this Xbox dev kit, and it's haunted, and because that's how it feels. This game feels fake. I don't believe it's real. Last thing I want to know, which I'm only finding out now while making this video, is that this game has a multiplayer spin-off. What? Now, I have never had this, and that's for sure. There's seemingly weirdly more videos on this game than there was the original, I guess. I'm just baffled that this thing exists. I assume that this one came after, but who knows at this point. Why do you exist? You make me upset. End of days. Infected versus Mercs. And let me just tell you, that title is the most of its era title, honestly. Jesus. Why do you exist? But speaking of being upset, let me just go over a handful of the weird titles I've found and a few other things. First off, we have Hack This Game, truly the series of all time. It's up there with the great Dark Souls, Elder Scrolls, Doom, some other shit. All of that pales in comparison to the Hack This Game franchise. Yeah, these are a weird little handful of games that my little brother insisted we get back in the day. He played them for probably about 5 minutes each, and as you may have already realized due to the title, this is a faux hacking simulator. Still have these loaded onto my old Xbox 360 where they stand barely played for the rest of time. Truly the Hackers 1995 of gaming. And now up next, we have Comedy Night for the Xbox, which I never had, didn't even know this existed for the longest time, and especially didn't know it existed during its time, but it was a game where you were meant to perform actual stand-up comedy as your avatar with a group of real people as their avatars watching you. And I bet my soul, I bet my bottom dollar, I bet my firstborn son that there was never an actual single attempt of stand-up comedy done in this game. I don't believe. Nah, there's just no way. From day one, this had to be just people fucking around. There's absolutely no way somebody said, I'm gonna do my entire set here as practice before I go out on open mic night. I don't believe it.
Do you want me to do that? I didn't think so. Exactly. So you just shut your face, take off that cap, go roll down the hill, fall in a ditch, and die.
Oh, and of course, I just want to give a little shout out to Minecraft Legacy Edition, which was the original Xbox 360 version of Minecraft. Sorry, Castleminer Z, I was with this one day one. Always wondered why it started out with like no content and you had to slowly catch up to the PC version. You know, plenty of people talk about Minecraft Legacy Edition, but they don't really talk about what it was like in the early days. So let me just hit you with a little anecdote I remember. You could not have a farm because the animals would always despawn in the early game. Before any of the updates, the animals would despawn. So if you tried to corral them behind a fence, they would just go away the moment you left the junk. So you just couldn't have a farm. One of the biggest aspects of Minecraft just was not working at the time. But yeah, after that, it just had to slowly catch up to PC for years. And am I crazy, or is the lighting different on this thing? I swear to God, you can tell if a video or screenshot was done on Legacy Edition just by the lighting, but I might just be insane though. I just wish we thought to save each tutorial world before they changed them. Every update, there'd be a new tutorial map, and they'd always just be the coolest thing ever. They'd be filled with crazy builds and Easter eggs, but we'd always end up deleting them, you know, as the new one came out. I'm sure they're preserved somewhere, but I don't know how to get my hands on them. And before we move on to the next segment, I just want to give a small little mention to Xbox Arcade, that third branch of the Xbox 360's library. You had normal digital titles, indie titles, and arcade titles. Arcade titles were made up of AA releases and, of course, many re-releases of older games. Everyone always talks about the Wii Virtual Console, but not enough people give Xbox Arcade its flowers because, goddamn, if you wanted to play a Dreamcast game in 2012, this was your best bet. But speaking of 2012, we have our next segment. Xbox 360 avatars are iconic, and I think it's safe to say that. I think they're right up there with the Mii for everyone outside of Asia, because whoa, do they not care about this box over there at all. These avatars really could have only been as popular and iconic as they were in the era they came from. Mii's still persist because they're goofy little dudes who the whole family can enjoy. But these guys were just another beast entirely to the Miis. There's something so 2000s in their design. You can slot these guys right next to GameStop's old art style, a gif of Gurr dancing, and they'd fit right in. And the best part of these little creatures was the unlockable stuff you could get for them. Yeah, they had an acceptable amount of clothing options from the start, a lot of really certifiable background character fits, but it was the unlockables that really made them worthwhile. You can unlock these new pieces of clothing from your video game achievements that were conveniently seated right next to your character. Mind you, yes, you could buy new clothing with real money from the little avatar clothing store, but I was poor when I was growing up, so this is all I had, and that's what I'm gonna keep talking about, okay? So many games supported these. I think some of the most famous ones were the Halo helmets, specifically from Halo Reach, that you could get for your little guy. But for me, the real show stealer was the Fable 3 unlockables. I mean, look at my old avatar, goddamn. I could explain why I was an old man, but that's a conversation for another day. But look at my man's fit, shit's impeccable.
What do you mean the fit is not hard? You're just a hater.
Now, there was a good reason besides playing indie games with your avatar in them that you'd want to dress these little guys up. It's because Xbox positioned them in the perfect spot. They were there the moment you booted up the console, they were there when you had to click on them to sign in, and they'd be there on the dashboard whenever you were doing literally anything on the Xbox. And of course, you needed to click on them when you wanted to see your achievements. And then, at the same time, all your friends' characters would line up right next to you on your dashboard so you could show off all your little achievement clothing and all. You should go check on them. It's been a while. Maybe a few of them are asleep, but if not, well, you still get to see them while they're resting. And by the time this video is out, the Xbox store will have shut down, and well, luckily many of these guys have been saved by people just continuing to use their Xbox 360 accounts to this day on their Series X's. Unfortunately, for many a little kid whose family could only afford one Xbox Live account, many of these little avatars are stuck on this machine to this day. But even if you still have your old avatar, it doesn't really matter anymore now, does it? Nobody cares about these guys. But why is that? When the Xbox One came out, the avatars were still very much present. Although they didn't sit on the home screen, they still definitely were there. But as time went on, the Xbox One went through so many small little tweaks and changes to its UI that it was hard to keep track of what they were adding and what they were removing. But with each new edition, the avatars became less and less important and less visible. So before you knew it, these guys were gone. The once beloved mascots of the Xbox 360, these little dorks that did goofy little animations, were now only visible if you went out of your way to find them. You had to go to someone's profile just to see theirs. So over time, people just stopped making them. They didn't even have an avatar. There were no Castleminer Zs or World of Keflings coming out for people to use their avatars. So with all that, these guys just lost relevance. That was until Microsoft came out with a new Xbox avatar. You were allowed to keep your old ones, but with these new ones, people might have actually started caring about them. Microsoft certainly wanted them to. I mean, on paper, these ones are just better. More options for everything. Clothing, body types, facial features, more detailed animations, robot arms, which people would have loved back in the day, but even for the people that did like the new avatars, it just didn't catch on. You can still make these guys right now, but they're just still nowhere near as present as the original. You'd think with such a massive overhaul, they'd try to put the avatars more in a space for them to breathe, but no, still hidden away on people's profiles. Because yeah, no, in an era of corporate minimalism, we can't have a funny little guy disrupting my weekly anime deals on my front page, now can we? Let's have a moment of silence for these goofy little guys before we move on to our next part. Alright, what's next? So the Xbox was born in an era of experimentation. Its lifespan was well over 10 years and its stores are only now closing. It has existed through so many different eras, from the Wild West of the internet to the death of the digital cowboy. It saw it all, and before it took its last breath, a lot of features have come and gone. So I think the most notable thing of that variety of Xbox 360 goodness is everyone's favorite fake money, everyone's favorite fun bucks, Microsoft points. Microsoft points were were a weird digital currency that the Xbox 360 used for a long time before it got rid of them in 2013. These were your classic digital currency to really, I don't know, lock you into using all of your birthday money on Xbox games, I guess. You needed to buy them to buy things off the digital marketplace, instead of just using real money, because heaven forbid it be simple and you as a little baby need to explain to your mom that you can't just put money in the Xbox. No, you have to buy real fake money first. Now, I swear to God, in the very early days of Xbox, you were able to exchange your gamer score for a small pittance of Microsoft points to spend, but researching it now, I'm beginning to question if that was ever true, because all the sources seem to point to no. But I feel like other people and YouTubers have repeated this back to me before. Maybe it was just an urban legend, or Microsoft is doing a cover-up about the fact that they ever gave away money. I'm not entirely sure, but if you had a gun to my head before this, I would have said that this was a fact without a second thought. Apparently, if you are still sitting on some of these old-ass points from a million years ago, you can still cash them in, which is something, honestly, I'm surprised they'd still honor, when the norm of the industry is that corporations can just steal from you if they please. Moving away from fun bucks and onto something a little more visually interesting, the HUD's gone by. The Xbox One wasn't the only Xbox to have its HUD radically changed. Just when the Xbox 360 did it, they did it in one big motion instead of slowly, but there are 3 distinct 360 hubs that have existed. The blades, the middle one, I don't know, what would you call this, like the tunnel of squares? And the last one, the Xbox 360 launched with the blades, which as you can see, looked like this. I don't really know how I would describe this, but you know, blades, I guess? So many people love this thing. If you have an old Xbox 360 with the blades still loaded onto it, you're sitting on quite the collector's item. To be honest, and I know you already can see where this is going, I don't really love the blades. I don't really get the love for them. I never had an Xbox 360 during this era, so maybe that's why. But to me, this is just really boring looking. It's not like the later one is anything, you know, super spectacular or you know, visually, you know, bombastic, I guess. This one just feels so flat, you know? The middle one, the tunnel of squares, I think I have extremely vague memories of, but this one kind of throws me for a loop because aesthetically, it's exactly the same as the last one they did, but it's just built super different. I like this and the last one better. I don't know what it is. I just feel like there's something nice about them. They give this kind of impression of depth without it feeling like the HUD and avatars are floating in some sort of weird SpongeBob all alone zone. It's a pleasant void, very gray and green. But finally, the time has come. As I am writing this and currently recording this, the Xbox 360 store is officially dead. Of course, this will come out, I don't know, like 20 days after that had already happened, but as I was recording the video earlier, it had not been dead yet, and now it is. So now I can put it in this section. The Xbox 360 store was the first big digital marketplace outside of Steam. It not only made buying digital games, but digital media the norm. Sure, the Wii and PS3 had their own stores, but I think the Xbox store, with its use of indies, arcade titles, and DLC support, and of course its new releases, really set the stage for where we are now. For better or for very much worse. Now, I don't like that we're forcefully being hurtled into an all-digital future, whether we like it or not, but I won't blame this place for trying to innovate. Without it, there'd be no Castleminer Z, there'd be no End of Days to go insane over. Hell, there probably would be still selling DLC as expansions by the disc, and maybe that would be cool, but it'd be hard to justify putting Hearthfire on its own disc, and like, come on, I like building a house. I wouldn't want to not have this one around. I mean, come on guys, it's fun, even if the mannequins move around when I'm not looking. The Xbox Avatar store seems like it's still operational, which doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm not going to try to spend $1 on a One Piece to find out if it will either reject my card or take $1 away from me for the One Piece. But with that, it's over. The HUD is even changed, which is oddly depressing. They got rid of the big image in the middle. The whole thing is just really small now. Well, just make sure you take care of your 360. Hell, mod it. Fill the thing with dubiously legal ROMs from your totally physical library that you dumped. And with that, the video is over. You should follow my art social medias for fan art of games that got released everywhere but America, and nobody but a specific group of nerds cares about it. So yeah, now I'm out of here. Bye.